Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Waharakakudash. Double honors to my apostles and elders at Great Millstone, the men that taught me this truth through the Spirit. Peace and blessings to you, brothers that teach this word in truth and sincerity. And peace and blessings to the rest of the elect of the house of Israel that scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. The name of this show is Romans, the 11th chapter, Graft Wild Olive Tree. And what inspired this show? Oh, the science. The science of Romans, the 11th chapter, Graft Wild Olive Tree. And what inspired this lesson was the spirit of power Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah. But Son Nigga, also known as Sonetta, Black News 102, Sonetta Studios, is at his antics again, you know. And I know he's irrelevant, but he gives us ammunition to bring forth edification and to teach the truth of the Bible. And he was sitting there with his antics, you know, criticizing how some Hebrews walked up to a pastor and, you know, the pastor was debating them about Romans the 11th chapter. And, you know, the pastor, I forgot his name. I'll put the link up in the description. The pastor was coming from the same old plantation Christianity, the dogma interpretation of the scriptures of the whole world can be saved. All nations can receive salvation. And he tried to prove this by using Romans the 11th chapter. And this show is just going to be simply the science. We're not even going to touch the scriptures yet. That's going to be part 2. But just the simple science of grafting shows that the wild olive tree has to be the nation of Israel. The interpretation or the meaning behind the wild olive tree has to represent Israel just off the simple science of grafting. And to put it plainly, you cannot graft a different species to another species. You can't do it. You have to graft something of a similar species, a similar gene. And that's just a simple science, man. And with that understanding, you understand that when the scriptures are speaking about the wild olive tree, it is talking about the nation of Israel coming back into the fold, which that means being reunited with Yahweh through believing upon Yahweh Shah. All right, now we just going to get the science, man. We're going to get the science. First, we're going to get the scripture. This is Romans 11-17. I'm going to get a better... Romans 11-17. And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. So Christians and different theologians, they use this to say the Gentiles can be saved. Other nations, everybody outside of Israel can be saved. Now we're going to go into the science behind grafting. And it's simple, man. It's simple. So this is homeguys.sfgate.com. And we went down to the part of the article, why compatibility matters. It says the fact that grafts between incompatible trees fail often immediately is widely understood. So it's understood that two different species or two different genes of plants cannot be grafted. It's already known for people that's into planting, okay? But you got these people that know nothing about gardening trying to interpret or break down what the wild olive tree represents or means. And it's just a parable. It's metaphoric, parabolic speech. All right. So it says but the mechanisms behind this failure is harder to see. At the cellular level, two trees are attempting to communicate and merge their vascular systems to make a single structure, the wild olive tree and the olive tree. No exchange of DNA take place, but the rootstock does require similar cells for a healthy connection. So in order for grafting to work, it has to have similar cells, similar genes, okay? In order for the graft to work. So different nations in Israelites, is two different genos, two different spermas. All right? So no, the other nations cannot be grafted into the nation of Israel. So it says, but the restock does require similar cells for the healthy connection. The bud forms a callus on the cut side almost immediately after restock xylem cell are at work attempting to grow over the bud. After several weeks, the bud is completely surrounded by the restock tissues, and the nutritional transport system begins to join. If the restock finds tissue that it cannot communicate with because of cellular and chemical incompatibilities, the graft fails, the buds dies from starvation. And that's just the science. That is the simple science behind grafting. If the genos cannot communicate with each other, if the cells cannot have the similar, okay, the graft cannot feed or grow because they are of a different species or a different gene. So when we read Romans 11 and 17, and some of the branches being broken off, which represents Israel, all right, which represents the Jews that didn't believe upon the Lord, and thou being a wild olive tree, were grafted the wild olive tree, meaning they was wild because they didn't know they was Israel. They wasn't keeping the customs of Israel, of the Jews at that time. All right. But their nationality, their genos, was of Israel. We're grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. And the only way you can be partakers of the root and the fatness of the olive tree, you have to be of that same family line, that same molecular cellular DNA, which represents Israel. You can't be of another species, also known as another nation, and try to graft into another family. It's not going to work. All right? And this is just the simple science. All right? So I typed in, why is compatibility important in grafting? As mentioned before, the success of grafting depends primarily on the compatibility, Salakia, a little tongue twister, a compatibility of the graft union to enable rapid development or vascular connectors, excuse me, vascular connections between the stock and the cycon, which in turn will allow quick resumption of the growth of both the root and the canopy. I went down. What are the possible reasons for graft incompatibility? Graft incompatibility is not clearly understood, but may be result of genetic differences between the grafted parts, abnormalities may develop in the vascular tissue as at the graft union. Disease-causing organisms such as viruses, uh, pyth- pythoplasmas, or other possible causes of incompatibility. And pretty much that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up with that. That's just the basic sciences. Anybody can Google this. All right. And it is that simple. It shows that the Spirit of the Lord has blinded these people from getting this understanding, because this is the simple science of planting and grafting. The simple science behind it. And this proves that when it talks about the wild olive tree, it's not speaking of another nation. It's not speaking of different Gentiles per se. Anybody that's not an Israelite. But this is talking about Israelites that has fallen from their customs, traditions, and nationality. But their genos, their cells, their DNA is of the stock of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Stay tuned to part 2. I pray and hope that you was edified. Leave your comments, do your responses. I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Wahar Rakak Radash. Till next time I say Shalom.